Bad language coming at ya. Don't watch if you're a kid. What is going on? The Winos here with the next Loki review. And look, I had a lot of fun with this episode. I did, but there was one part of it that has me a little worried for the rest of the season. And I'll get into that when we get to the part that started to worry me in the episode. So, episode starts out, Loki in this void, and the other Lokis, like where we left off last episode, basically. And, they're in a void, and there's a big gas monster. And as soon as I saw that, I was a little apprehensive, because we know gas monsters in superhero movies haven't turned out the best in the past. Green Lantern, Fantastic Four, Silver Surfer, I'm looking at both of you. But that's not the point that I was saying I was worried about in the episode. So these Lokis take Loki away. They say there's no point fighting this thing. Let's hang out in this underground bunker we have. And we find out from Sylvie talking to Judge Lady that the place he got sent to, that everyone gets sent to when you're pruned, is this place called the Void, because they can't actually kill you. They just send you to the end of time. And it seems like time stops there because child Loki, I imagine, has been there for a while, long enough for these other three Lokis, Alligator Loki, Black Loki, and Old Loki, to call him a king. And they call him a king because apparently he killed Thor. So, yeah, it seems like time kind of stands still there because it's about the end of time. But Sylvie figures out that, well, doesn't figure out, she hypothesizes that it's at about the end of time, but the end of time is actually after that, and if you get to the end of time, you can never be tracked because there's no prime timeline. You can't cause a variant because any timeline is possible. So she wants to blast through the void, which is controlled by this gas monster cloud, and get to the timekeepers. And she's discussing this all with Judge Lady. And what I thought was a little fucking sus was that she just started trusting Judge Lady almost immediately. Like, she didn't fully trust her, but she trusted her pretty hard. But anyway, turns out Judge Lady was not to be trusted. She was trying to stall her while the time variance bloody security guards came and were able to try to stop Sylvie from doing anything. But then Sylvie pruned herself to get herself to the void. Pretty ballsy. But look, for a lot of this episode, a lot of it was just a lot of fun watching the Lokis interact with each other. I really enjoyed the scene where Loki went down into their little underground bunker and was hanging out before we got there, while they're walking across the landscape. And it seems like it's a landscape where all the places come together, because they explain it a little bit. They say it's the end of time and all these points converge, and because that's where time's going to end. But anyway, they're walking across, and you see the Thanos copter is fucking buried in the sand. The Thanos copter, nice little Easter egg. And I bet there are a bunch more Easter eggs in the episode. People who are more into the comics than me are probably fucking chewing this one up, going, oh, did you see that? You see that? You see that? But yeah, the Thanos copter fucking jumped out at me. And Black Loki's carrying a hammer. I was like, is that Mjolnir? Like, we find out young Loki's variant, his Nexus event was killing Thor. Was Black Loki's Nexus event stealing Mjolnir? But then how could he do it? Because you have to be worthy to lift it, and who knows? But he's carrying a hammer. Anyway, they go down into this bunker, and as you're going down, you see an actual real Mjolnir there and a Thor in a jar trying to get at it. It's like, is that how Kid Loki killed him? Did you put him in a jar and fucking tease him with Mjolnir? Or did he really kill him? But they go down, they're talking about shit. Something I like down there is they were drinking goon. The Lokis. Drinking the cheap wine. Love a bit of a goon sack myself. You never grow out of it. You think you do, you think you're too fancy, but hey, put a goonsack in front of me, I will drink that shit. But yeah, bit of fun there. I like the interplay of the Lokis. Loki tries to leave and he's like, I want to go kill this gas cloud thing. And as soon as he gets out, there is another Loki with like an army of Lokis, like saying, nah, motherfucker, we got you. And he's the one that we've seen in the ads before with the horns, and he's got like some kind of little badge there and stuff. And he's like, and it looks like he's got a crew behind him. Turns out that's not Loki coming back to fucking take shit over. That's just a different Loki coming in this. But then all the Lokis fucking betray each other. Black Loki betrays Kid Loki and says, now I'm going to be the king. And then the Loki who led the army there is like, that's what I told you, but now I'm going to be the king. But then all the Lokis in his army turn on him and say, yeah, that's what we told you, but we're going to be the king. And then they all just start fighting each other. So it's, you know, Loki being a double-crossing bastard, which he is. It makes Loki, you know, a bit of a joke, but he has been throughout the MCU. There's been plenty, like, bloody Hulk picking him up and just smacking him around. That was a bit of a joke on Loki, and many other times throughout. But it was fun. And old Loki, he's all about his magic. Like, he tells Loki the story because Loki's like, how'd you get old? Didn't we die with Thanos? And he's like, no, I didn't even try to stab Thanos. Knives are for shit dicks. Like, magic is so much more powerful. So I created an image of a Loki trying to kill him, and it was so realistic that Thanos believed it. And I just hid out, disguised myself as rubble, and then when they left, I just floated around, and then I lived on a planet undetected for ages because I was just doing my own thing and not interfering with shit. But then I got lonely, went to look for my brother, and as soon as I went to step off the planet, it caused a Nexus event because they just, if it went any further in the future, like maybe some shit would have happened, and that's how he got sent here. And old Loki's the Richard E. Grant Loki, by the way. So this is all the Loki shit. And look, I was having fun with it. It wasn't the most overall story-reaching aspect, but, you know, watching a great actor like Richard E. Grant play off Tom Hiddleston, both being Loki, watching all the Lokis kind of interact with each other, it was fun. It was just a bit of fucking comic book fun, and I enjoyed it. Problem I had... Oh, before we get to the problem... I already said, Sylvie pruned herself, ended up here, gas cloud's already coming at her. She's like, whoa, what do I do? Shit, where am I getting away? And then a car rocks up, and everyone knew who it was going to be. It's Mobius. Mobius is there. He saves her. They're driving away. When Loki was leaving before the army one came, he said, I wanted to get back to find Lady Loki because, well, Sylvie, because, like, oh, she's great and she wants to take him down and stuff. And that's kind of the beginning of the problem I do have. And that problem is, once they did find each other, he said his plan was to go kill the gas monster, get in there somehow, stab it in the heart. It was a pretty dumb plan. And she's like, well, that's the dumbest plan ever. And she kind of bitched him out. And she's like, I'm going to enchant it. And look, it was a better plan, but the fact that she's bitched him out on his own show, up until this point, they'd been adversaries, but they'd been kind of equal. And even last episode where Loki looked at her and said, you're amazing, it was like, I thought that's because he was in love with her. You know, when you're in love with someone, like, oh, you do think they're the most amazing thing in the world, and you put them up on a pedestal and you worship them. And I doubt Loki's really been in love before. He even said that in the Lamentus episode. He's like, yeah, I had some flings and shit. I fucked whoever I wanted. I'm a hedonist, but it was... my love was always conquering the fucking universe. And he finally fell in love with someone, which is a female version of himself, which totally makes sense. I've said that a million times. So it makes sense that he's like, oh, she's so amazing. So I didn't mind that last time. But this episode, they just seem more and more like they're pushing Loki out of the way. and letting Sylvie become the protagonist. And it's like, I didn't sign up to watch a show called Loki to watch Loki not be the fucking main driving force of the action and the driving force of the story, and to see someone else come along and be way fucking better than him. Look, I don't have any problems with Sylvie. She's fine. I understand her motivation. I like that her and Loki are kind of into each other, but look, she doesn't have anywhere near the charisma of Loki. She doesn't have the history of Loki that got us to start watching the show in the first place, because we already loved this character. You can't just hitch your wagon to fucking Loki and boot him out of his own show and, yeah, just say it's yours now. And it's not that she's saying it's hers now, but it's like she's the fucking protagonist essentially now. And that, her just bitching him out and saying my plan's better, which they've been doing the whole time, but in this case, she was fucking totally right, and she just silenced him and just went along with it. Like, that was the little seed, but the very next scene, we had Judge Lady go to some room in the TVA, and she had Big Bad Broad imprisoned in some red fucking energy field. And their whole thing, they were talking about Sylvie. They weren't talking about having to go and find Loki. They weren't talking about having to go and stop Loki. They're like, she's like, well, where is she? Oh, well, Judge Lady knew where she went because she pruned herself and went to the end. But C21 or whatever her name is, Big Bad Broad, she's like, she figured out Judge Lady, it's because Judge Lady's like, oh, I'm trying to keep the TVA along the thing. I know that they were fake timekeepers, but, you know, we want to still keep the order until we know what's going on. And C21 just was like, nah, you want to find out for yourself also who they are. That's what fucking Sylvie wants, and she's going to succeed and you aren't, because she needs it and you want it. And Judge Lady's asking her about Sylvie and how she can stop her and stuff. And, like, Loki was just no fucking concern to either of them whatsoever. It was all about Sylvie. And I was like, oh, yeah, it seems like it's being even more cemented that she's essentially the fucking protagonist of this show. And I'm like, I didn't tune in to watch a show called Loki to watch Loki not be the main fucking hero. But anyway, we move on, and it's the Lokis. So, as I said, a few of them escaped the Loki war that was happening. It's our Loki, it's old Loki, Richard E. Grant, it's young Loki, so now they have a past, present, and future version of Loki, and it's alligator Loki. My prediction last week that all four of them were Lokis was correct. I mean, it wasn't much of a prediction. I think anyone could have figured out that. But Alligator Loki was a bit of fun. I liked him. He was cool. But, yeah, they're going along with them. They meet up with Mobius and Sylvie and shit, and they're figuring out their plan to go fucking take on this gas monster cloud, Eliath, I believe it was called. And so you got Mobius talking to old Loki, Richard E. Grant. It was a fun little conversation there. Oh, before we got that, we got Mobius and Sylvie talking, and Mobius going on about, like, because Sylvie's like, Mobius was like, I thought I was doing the right thing. That's why I did everything. And she was like, oh, yeah, the right thing, fucking widowing, orphaning a child, and, you know, taking her away from her family, imprisoning her and shit. And he's like, oh, yeah, well, when you think the ends justify the means, that it's you don't really think about what you're doing. Something along those lines. It's like, yeah, that's exactly like a lackey of a true believer of a totalitarian cause. They get the propaganda and the message so drilled into their head that they lose their humanity and they do, inhumane things for the cause. So yeah, Mobius fell into that, but he decided that's not me anymore. And we get a bit of conversation of that with Mobius and old Loki there, and Mobius is like, well, there's always time to change, and you see old Loki kind of go, because he thought Lokis couldn't change because, well, once again, we saw all the Lokis fighting each other. He's like, fucking Lokis. We're always just fucking backstabbing people. And then young Loki made the point that, like, and then when we do try to change, the TVA comes in and takes us away and sends us here. So it's like he had somewhat of a point, but we do get that paid off in the end. And while they're having that conversation, I'll admit there was a bit of a cute scene of Loki and Sylvie outside. It was very much like awkward teenagers who don't know how to make the move. They both like each other, but neither one knows how to make the move, and they're all nervous and awkward. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cute. Sharing a blanket and shit like that. But anyway, we get past that scene, and we're seeing them go and take on the fucking big cloud monster. And when they go to take on the big cloud monster, Sylvie's like, I'm going to try to enchant it. So she'd taken the Time Door Zoopy thing away from Judge Lady before she killed herself. So she had that as a way to escape. She gave that to Mobius, and he's like, Loki, you want to come with me? And Loki's like, nah. So this is a bit of character development for Loki. He's like, nah, I'm staying here and going to see this fight through till the end. I'm backing Sylvie up. And then Mobius offered it to the other Lokis, young Loki, old Loki, and alligator Loki. And, well, young Loki and old Loki said, we're not leaving here. This is our home. And so they stayed, and I guess our alligator Loki agreed with him because he didn't go with Mobius. And then Mobius stepped through a door. We'll see where he went next week. And we see Loki and Sylvie take on this cloud monster. Now, it was good. I know I said they've handed the protagonist role over to Sylvie, which I'm not fucking stoked about since I'm following this for Loki. But they did let him, have a heroic moment where she's like, I don't know how I can get close enough. And he's like, I'll cause a distraction. And he ran away. And then it wasn't quite working. As soon as she started enchanting the cloud, Eliath, it turned its attention back to her. But then we see old Loki get his chance to fucking have his heroic moment. And this is where the payoff to what I said before about Mobius saying there's always time to change, and him having that realization in his eyes came off, because now he's using his magic to project all this vision of this big city and take the attention away from the cloud, and it's going out after all that and keeps chopping away at it, and eventually it comes at him and he sacrifices himself so these two Lokis can get their, so Sylvie and the Loki we're following can get their shit done. And so it's good to see him get to have a heroic moment as well. And then it was a bit of a Guardians of the Galaxy thing, like Sylvie and Loki had to hold hands and both try to enchant at the same time. Loki's like, I can't enchant. She goes, you can, because I can, and we're the same, blah, blah, blah. But also, like, they held hands and she had to kind of fucking give him the confidence and whatnot. But they do. They enchant the thing. It all turns green. It opens up into a big kind of, like, a big space in the cloud opens up and you can see the fucking land that it's thinking of, the memory that they're going to fucking trap it in. And that's where the episode ended. So we'll see next week what that land was. So, yeah, look, I had a lot of fun with the episode, but like I said, it seems pretty obvious now that they are handing over the protagonist role to Sylvie, and I don't like that. I like her being a great character. I like them introducing her here, and maybe she can go off and do her own adventures sometime. But I don't like her being the hero of fucking Loki. It's Loki! I'm watching it for fucking Loki. So hopefully he doesn't end up the rest of the series just being a fucking complete simp like it's seeming like he is. And I guess we'll have to wait for next week to find out. Join me then, will ya? Catch us next time. I'm the fucking wino.